Hi everyone, this is Mallory Flowers on behalf of Jennifer Schaus and Associates, and we are coming to you live from Washington, D.C., and welcome to our Webinar Wednesday series. We are hosting a full day of complimentary webinars every 30 minutes until 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and our speakers range from accountants to attorneys and other industry professionals. The full schedule is on our website underneath the webinar tab. In the interest of time, we do not take questions, so our speaker's contact info is posted on the last slide. If you have any questions, please contact the speaker directly. The recordings are on our website underneath the archive webinar tab as well as on our YouTube channel. And this is just a quick blurb about us. Jennifer Schaus and Associates is based in downtown Washington, D.C., and we help both product and service companies with federal contracting. Our services range from market analysis reports to contract vehicles, including the GSA schedule. We can also help you with proposal writing and post-award contract administration. More information about our services can be found on our website. These are some upcoming classes in January. More information can be found on our website. We now offer advertising in our weekly newsletter and in our 2019 Webinar Wednesday series. Please contact me for more information. So we're going to go ahead and dig into today's presentation, which is Strategy Shaped Pipeline, with Heather Newland as our speaker. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Heather.
Thank you, Mallory. I really appreciate it. I am thrilled to be able to share this content with your audience and look forward to the questions that will come afterwards. So I've spent 25 years in government contracting and technology, mostly at the large systems integrator. As a general manager, I oversaw portfolios of 175 million annual sales and teams led across the intelligence, defense, and FedCiv markets. Currently, I serve as the government contracting chair for Newport Board Group, where I focus on working with small and middle-sized business owners to prepare for graduation. Frequently, this also means growing the acquisition, preparing to sell, and establishing boards. Today's webinar, What You Need to Know, Strategy Shapes Pipeline. Does your pipeline reflect where your business has been or where you want your business to go? Too often, strategies are written as vision statements without providing the specific actionable steps necessary to achieve it. Using a road trip analogy, vision is your destination, perhaps New York City, and strategy is your set of directions. For example, take I-95 north to the New Jersey Turnpike and exit at the Washington Tunnel. Your pipeline is the critical component to transforming your business from where it is today to where you want it to be. If the pipeline doesn't reflect your business's strategic objectives, you don't know where your business will end up. Next slide, please. Your strategy should provide the actionable steps between now and the end of your time horizon, typically 3 to 5 years. These steps should include annual growth targets, but it is insufficient to say grow revenue by 30%. The strategy needs to specify where the growth will originate, considering currently awarded contracts and their option years, existing business that will be up for recompete, customer budgets, adjacent customers, and capabilities you can enter. Steady annual growth is rarely achievable due to the realities of the acquisition environment. In addition, your business may need to build credibility to achieve growth. Perhaps your business is new to prime contracting or full and open competition, or your growth targets necessitate entry into new customers or technical offerings. In addition, business risks such as reduced government budgets, bid protest, existing contracts ending, or increasing competition must be factored into the growth plan. Assessing all available data, the strategy should establish annual targets for each year of the plan. Annual revenue and growth targets will establish the size the pipeline needs to be each year. Industry standards recommend a pipeline between 3 and 5 times the revenue targets. A multiplier of 3 assumes that the P-go, the probability of the acquisition occurring, times the P-win, probability of winning the bid, is 33%. While a pipeline multiplier of 5 assumes a 20% conversion rate. Next slide, please. But size is only one of several critical metrics to be measured and tracked. What other strategic change does your vision require? Are you planning for small business graduation? Then you need to win full and open bids. Do you want to stay small and take advantage of set-aside programs? Then you need to ensure you aren't pursuing larger contracts that will push you out of the size standard. You will need to enter a new market to achieve the acquired growth. Then you need to plan for market entry, potentially through subcontractor roles or smaller contracts to build credibility and establish customer relationships. Does the strategy call for a shift from subcontracting into prime roles? Then you need to identify opportunities where your past performance will qualify you to bid prime. For every new element in the strategy, you must also adjust your win rate to reflect lower credibility, typically due to less relevant past performance and new customers needing to gain confidence in your ability to deliver. Each component of your vision will require follow-on, action-oriented plans. Next slide, please. Each strategic component of your vision requires annual metrics to be identified and the methodology provided next to be followed. As an example, let's consider a vision leading to a strategic decision to move from subcontracting into prime positions. In this case study, we assume the strategy requires a 25% of revenue from prime contracts in 5 years. An illustration of the metrics to achieve this target is provided in the table and explained in the yearly action statements provided next. In year 1, 0% of the revenue was achieved from prime contracts. In order to realize the vision in year 5, the pipeline needs to include prime opportunities worth 25% of the year 3 revenue target. In year 2, we assume prime contracts continue at 0% of annual revenue due to an 18 to 24 month capture cycle and the prior pipeline not including prime contracts. We assume a win rate for the opportunities bid at 20%, reasonable for a high-performing subcontractor trying to take on the additional role of prime contractor with known customers and demonstrated infrastructure. Year 2's pipeline needs to include prime contracts worth 33% of the year 4 revenue target. Note how I'm saying prime opportunities, as the pipeline will also include subcontractor bids to meet the remaining revenue targets. In year 3, we assume some prime contracts were won and 5% of the annual revenue comes from prime roles. Using a 25% win rate for the opportunities bid, a minor increase from the prior year, results in year 3's pipeline needing to be 83% of the year 5 revenue target. As the process continues, year 4 should yield 10% of revenue from prime contracts and a prime contract win rate of 30%. At this point, the strategy has likely been revised and a larger target for the percentage of revenue for prime contracts assigned. The pipeline for prime contracts will now need to be between 1 and 2 times the future revenue target. As the organization has made the transition into prime roles, the past performance and customer relations should readily support this objective. In year 5, we achieve the 25% revenue target through a win rate of 30% and a year 3 pipeline equal to 83% of the year 5 revenue target. Next slide, please. As this example illustrates, strategic change to the revenue requires disciplined, long-term planning, accounting for the time required to build credibility, establish customer relationships, and provide past performance. Relevant past performance is frequently the most challenging obstacle as you are looking to the contracts you plan to bid in 3 to 5 years. Be sure to research the specific past performance requirements of the predecessor contract and the customer's general RFP tendencies. The pipeline will need to include these pursuits as they are necessary to meet the past performance requirements of future bids. As you can see, this process is complex and time-consuming. Given the uncertainty of the customer's acquisition plan, P-GO, and your ability to win, P-WIN, many companies turn to growth via acquisition as a parallel process to gain the past performance qualifications and customer relationships. Next slide, please. Important takeaways from this example include, first, the win rate from implementing a new strategy will start low and slowly increase as past performance builds. In this case study, we start with a 20% win rate in prime contracts and gradually increase to a 30% win rate. Second, the pipeline size is dependent upon your future revenue targets. You need to look at revenue targets 2 years in the future and win rates 1 year out. Ensuring the pipeline is large enough is critical to achieving your growth targets. And finally, for simplicity in this example, only included win rate as the dependent variable. In reality, the pipeline will need to include the impact of government decisions in your internal bid process. You will want to factor based upon the probability the opportunity will proceed on schedule in the manner you are expecting. For instance, the government doesn't delay the acquisition or move it to a different contract vehicle, and you want to factor based upon your internal decision to bid the opportunity when it is released. This includes an assessment of the competitive environment and available resources of both people and capture dollars. Next slide, please. Referring back to the example of moving into prime roles, there are specific actions you need to take each year to achieve the vision. In year 1, you should identify current primes willing to roll reverse on select bids. Frequently, these will be small business incumbents graduating that are no longer prime and are seeking to maintain some revenue. Signing teaming agreements specifying conditions each party will prime and subcontract within a set of agencies. While team agreements are often not enforceable, the process of negotiating will provide insights into the working relationships you can expect during execution. You need to qualify pursuits for the pipeline in year 2 and build the case for a prime proposal win. In addition, you'll need to update win themes, past performance, and management metrics to reflect a prime role rather than a subcontractor role. This process is critical to getting the leadership to begin thinking and acting like a prime. In year 2, you will pursue and bid contracts worth 25% of the year 3 pipeline. Assuming a 20% win rate, this will lead to year 3 awards at 5% of revenue targets. Note, depending on your credibility as a subcontractor able to make the shift to prime, the 20% win rate may be generous. In year 2, you'll continue vetting teaming partners, updating proposal artifacts to reflect a prime bid, and qualifying pursuits for the pipeline. In year 3, you will need to execute on the 5% prime targets, 1, to build credibility and past performance, bid on year 4 prime pursuits, and qualify the pipeline at the size required for the year 5 targets. Note how complex implementing a single strategic change becomes as you need to simultaneously execute this year, bid for next year, and qualify pursuits for 2 years in the future. Don't get so caught up in the growth task of bidding and qualifying that you don't have strong execution. Stellar past performance is critical. If a customer takes a chance on you as prime and your performance isn't excellent, you may not have a second chance. At this point, ensuring top CPARS ratings is likely more important than the business development activities. Balancing strong execution with robust business development is the key to accelerating growth. In year 4, repeat the methodology. At this point, you will need to refresh your strategy to get targets outside the 5-year plan and to adjust based upon how well the goals were achieved. Next slide, please. Had you realized the level of planning and metric identification required to achieve a seemingly simple goal of establishing revenue from prime contracts? This example only highlights the metrics for the pipeline. In order to successfully win prime contracts, you also need to develop a set of actions around developing credibility with the customer and teammate community, developing proposal artifacts reflective of a prime bid, and maturing operating systems to enable execution as a prime contractor. A similar pipeline table and set of action needs to be developed for each additional area of growth. An example includes entry into a new customer where you'll have to decide whether you enter as a prime or a subcontractor, and the mix between these roles needs to evolve over the years. Tracking the necessary pipeline metrics for each strategic goal, including prime contracts, customers, and capabilities, is complicated. When you conduct your annual planning, be sure to assign someone to connect the strategic goals to the pipeline and the metrics needed to track progress. Don't forget the metrics must demonstrate incremental progress each year. As stated earlier, the win rate will start low and gradually increase as the past performance expands. Next slide, please. While you are focused on these growth strategies, the pipeline for your current business continues to need attention. When teams get absorbed in growth, they frequently forget the importance of protecting their business base. Ensuring the pipeline accounts for these considerations: contracts coming to an end, change orders from existing contracts, renewal of option years, anticipated organic growth or decline, and contract performance and how that may impact future bids. In order to track the pipeline across a variety of factors, you will want to ensure the pipeline tool you're using allows for easy sorting across each objective. For example, protect the base, increase prime contracts, enter a new agency. Next slide, please. In order to achieve your strategic vision, your pipeline must reflect the business you need to qualify, pursue, and win. The methodology provided You can apply these steps. First, segment your strategy into targeted growth areas. Second, identify annual metrics for each growth area. Next, align your pipeline to the growth areas and metrics. Finally, conduct pipeline reviews to ensure the business you're pursuing will achieve the vision. This webinar is based upon an article published on LinkedIn on March 1st. If you'd like a PDF copy, please email me. Next slide, please. If you're planning graduation from small business status in the next 2 to 3 years, the Small to Large Transition Challenge Newport Board Group is conducting in partnership with the McLean Group and Holland Knight could be a good opportunity for you to create your company's tailored graduation strategy with me as the lead facilitator. Over the course of 6 months, 12 CEOs who have successfully navigated graduation share their lessons learned around specific topics that each graduation plan should include, such as value proposition, growth via acquisition, if and when to establish a board, and maturing operations. CEO guest speakers include George Wilson from ECS Federal, Michelle Lee from SDGI, Dennis Kelly from Buchanan Edwards, and 9 other GovCon giants. The program divides its time equally between the CEO guest speakers and the workshops facilitated by growth experts. By the end of the program, each company will have created their tailored graduation program. The next cohort begins in late January with registration open now. Go to newportprograms.com to learn more about the program and to register. Next slide, please. Thank you for joining me today, and please reach out with any further questions. You can also check out the weekly videos I post on LinkedIn, which address different aspects of GovCon growth and navigating the small to large transition. I look forward to speaking with you, and hopefully we'll see you at the Small to Large Transition Challenge in January. Back to you, Mallory.
Thank you, Heather. That was a lot of great information, and thank you for sharing your time with us today, and thank you for everyone who joined us. If you have any questions for Heather, please contact her directly with the information you see on your screen. Thank you, everybody.